Hey, what's ready? Welcome back to News Dose, and I think it's safe to say that Game Pass has had a very interesting year. You know, its mind share isn't necessarily as strong as what it once was, but I will say this much. From a quality standpoint, 2025 has actually been one of its better years, and today's news leans into that because they just announced a 2025 record, and not only does this speak to Game Pass and how games can still move units despite launching into Game Pass, but it also speaks to just how good this game truly is, and that's really my main takeaway from today's news. So stick around and we're going to get into all of that, plus a potential remake that sounds very exciting on paper. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go and get right into things, though, starting off with Octopath Traveler 0. I mean, I feel like this game has been going a bit under the radar, but today's reviews may just change that. Currently has an 84 overall score on Metacritic, which puts it right in line with the previous two entries. The original title landed on 83, and Octopath Traveler 2 received an 85. So, I mean, Team Asano has done it yet again. They're one of my favorite JRPG studios, and this here is the exact reason why. They're just so consistent, and they don't need to make big AAA games. They just know how to tap into that nostalgic element in terms of art style and combat beats. I mean, really, if you think about it, Octopath Traveler 0 ended up receiving an even higher score than Metroid Prime 4, and I'm sure that wasn't on a lot of people's minds going into the week. This is a really interesting take for Octopath Traveler, though, because it's actually a premium adaptation of the gacha-style mobile game, and because of that, there was some skepticism going into its release and, whether or not it would be as good as the previous two titles. But apparently, it works incredibly well. I mean, I've heard some great things about its story, and as usual, as you'd expect for the series, how good its combat feels as well. So all in all, it sounds like it's one of the better JRPGs of the year, and if you're interested, it will launch tomorrow on December 4th. Now, we also got an update for the Marathon Plagiarism situation. I mean, people were really upset earlier in the year when it was discovered that Bungie plagiarized an online artist. And it wasn't that they just simply stole assets, but really the entire game is heavily inspired by that specific art style. So it's really just a scummy situation all around, but it now sounds like Bungie has fixed the problem, aka they paid the artist a bundle of money. You can see here where Into posted, the Marathon art issue has been resolved with Bungie and Sony Interactive Entertainment to my satisfaction. Now, to me, this kind of reads as if a lawyer told them to post this online as some kind of settlement between them and Bungie without going too into detail, that way Bungie can kind of clear their reputation before the launch of Marathon, and the artist can still profit some money off of their work. Personally, though, I don't think that this should help Bungie's reputation. I mean, it's great that they paid the artist, I'm glad that they did, but at the end of the day, this is not the first time that Bungie has been caught plagiarizing, and it really should have never happened in the first place. Even still, though, like I said before, I am glad to hear that the artist was compensated, and it is good to at least have heard that. Moving on, though, the Game Awards is only 1 week away by this point, and there's already various different rumors and speculation as to what and what won't be there. But according to Ubisoft, we can now rule out Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake. Yeah, it's been heavily rumored that it will release in early 2025 and potentially be at the Game Awards, but now the official Prince of Persia Twitter account has doused the fire. They said, sorry to disappoint, but can confirm Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time won't be at the Game Awards this year. So, I mean, just given all the information that we have, this does come off as a bit of a surprise, because by all indication, it is set for early 2025, and that's not just because of the leaks, but also because Ubisoft themselves have indicated that it will release before April through their financial reports. Now, it is possible that it got an internal delay. I mean, we can't rule that out, but at the same time, it's also possible that it will get its re-reveal just simply elsewhere. It is very expensive to get a spot at Jeff Keighley showcases, so maybe Ubisoft will just announce it somewhere else sometime here soon. I mean, I guess we'll find out, but definitely don't expect it to show up at the Game Awards, given the information that we now have. All right, now let's go and talk about Xbox Game Pass and this new record that was just set by Expedition 33. And that's the thing about this topic. If I'm glazing anything during this topic, it's Expedition 33, because this is a truly groundbreaking, incredible game that I think everybody should play. Now, I'll come back to that in a moment, but Xbox announced this via Xbox Wire, where they said, fresh from sweeping the golden joysticks and poised to do the same at the Game Awards, Sandfall Interactive's phenomenal debut RPG is one of the most buzzed-about releases of the year. So it should surprise no one when we announce that Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is the biggest new third-party game launch on Xbox Game Pass of 2025. That's based on the number of unique users in the first 30 days of its availability, which means a huge number of Xbox players join Mael, Gustav, SK, and the gang on their journey right from the beginning. And the thing that I want everybody to understand here is that there is more to this story, because even beyond this update from Xbox, we know for a fact that Expedition 33 has sold incredibly well. Last month, they revealed that it has so far sold 5 million copies, and that's not players. Every time that they've given an update, they have specifically used copies sold rather than players played. So with that information, combined with Xbox's update, we now have a confirmation that Expedition 33 has reached far beyond just 5 million players. It potentially reached several more million through Game Pass alone. And that is something that I have talked about on the channel various different times. I mean, I know there's a lot of back and forth if, day one Game Pass games are worth it or not, but in my opinion, I think it really just kind of depends on the game, the scope, and the budget. If it's a big AAA game from a third-party company, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to be a day one launch title for Game Pass. But Expedition 33, on the other hand, this is the perfect fit for something like Game Pass, because despite how good it looks and how good it plays, it still came from a small independent studio of just 30 people, and its budget wasn't anywhere near as high as AAA games. So with that in mind, Game Pass can do a few different things for developers. One is that it can immediately inject money into a studio because of its upfront payment to be included in the Game Pass. But then the other thing, and I think this is even more important in some situations, is that it's a great source for word of mouth, especially for new, unproven IP, which is exactly what Expedition 33 was. I mean, you have to remember that not a lot of people knew about Expedition 33 when it first launched. I mean, for anybody who's been watching my channel probably did, because we talked about it a lot leading up to its release. But that first day, with reviews just raving about how good it is, and then the word of mouth that followed, it just kind of blew up online. And I'm fairly positive that the Game Pass community played a big part into that. I mean, let me put it this way. I've said this before, but I don't think that Helldivers 2 would have been anywhere near as successful if it would have just launched exclusively on PlayStation. I think that the Steam community drove a lot of word of mouth for that game. And I think for Expedition 33, the Game Pass community played a similar role. So, I mean, yeah, Game Pass isn't always necessarily the villain that it's described to be. But at the end of the day, what really drove Expedition 33 is just how incredibly good the studio made it. They deserve all the credit here because, I mean, this is an incredible game. I mean, I cannot say enough good things about this game. It's just the perfect blend of story, characters, atmosphere, emotion, imagination, music. I mean, the music is brilliant, the world building is great, and it also possibly has the most engrossing turn-based combat system for any turn-based JRPG ever made. I mean, okay, interactive turn-based games aren't necessarily a new thing, but Expedition 33 took that element from other games and they truly evolved it beyond anything that I would have expected. I mean, its combat is truly exhilarating with just all the different dodges and the parries. It's just an incredible system. So if you haven't already played Expedition 33, seriously, go check it out. It really is that good. It's an all-time great, honestly. And I think it will win the Game of the Year because it just deserves it. I mean, I'll even go so far as to say that Expedition 33 kind of flipped the industry on its head. They proved so many narratives wrong about JRPGs specifically, and they're kind of schooling the big AAA publishers out there. Now, speaking of all-time great JRPGs, though, we actually have one more thing to talk about, and I think fans are going to go crazy over this if this turns out to be true, because it kind of feels like Square Enix is teasing a Chrono Trigger remake. Yeah, it could actually be happening, because this comes from Yuji Horii. During an interview, he was asked about if something was happening with Chrono Trigger, and he responded, "I can't talk about that. Wait, if I say that, you'll figure it out. Don't ask. Asking is off limits. I'll get into trouble." Now, to be completely fair here, this doesn't confirm anything, much less confirm a remake. This could just be him playing around and nothing more. But this is also not the first time that has been rumored that Square Enix has been chomping at an HD 2D Chrono Trigger remake. And truthfully, it just makes sense. I mean, it's one of the most beloved games of all time. And some people even view it as the greatest game ever made. And, well, okay, I don't really sit in that boat. I still, however, view it as an all-time great that stands the test of time. And I think if it were to get the HD 2D treatment with voice acting, I mean, it would immediately be a very successful game for Square Enix. So in my opinion, really it and Final Fantasy VI are the two easiest decisions for Square Enix to give the HD 2D treatment. Regardless, though, we'll see what happens with all this, but I don't know. Maybe this is our first real piece of evidence that it is happening in the background. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.